Well, John, thanks very much for coming on the program tonight, sir.
Always my pleasure.
Happy Constitution Day to you.
Why, thank you. Thank you.
And I thought it was interesting at DelawareOnline.com today. They had an article by, I guess, a 30-year veteran of the Wilmington Department of Police talking about gun reporting laws and how they don't infringe on the Constitution. What?
Well, I beg to differ with a good captain. I'm sure her heart's in the right place, but her understanding of the Constitution is somewhat different than mine.
Yeah, it's interesting. She starts out, she says, Second Amendment protects an individual's right to keep and bear arms. I agree with that. Framers of the Constitution, such as Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, believed that private ownership and the right to bear arms by a common citizen was essential in protecting democracy. I agree with that. When our Constitution was created in the 18th century, she says, many Americans were held in slavery and women were denied equal rights. Clearly, the principles enshrined in the Constitution have evolved, and courts have provided changing interpretations of the law as society faces new challenges. Now here, John, I think that's where she starts to get her history a little wrong.
Well, she does. Obviously, she doesn't know anything about the 13th or 14th Amendments.
Exactly. Yes, it is true. The Constitution said nothing about the abolition of slavery, said nothing about women voting, which is why those issues had to be dealt with via constitutional amendments.
Yes. What was that, the 19th women's suffrage? I'm not sure. I had to look it up, but I think that's correct.
I think
so. Or is
so.
that taxation? I'm not sure.
That was such a busy time period of amendments in our nation's history. You've got, good ones like giving women the right to vote, bad ones like prohibition of alcohol. I can't keep track of all of them, but again, it took an amendment. It wasn't a reinterpretation by the judiciary. It was a constitutional amendment saying this is not allowed, this is allowed.
And I think the evolution that she's talking about is a societal evolution and a political evolution that took place over a period of years, not an evolution that took place with one court decision.
Absolutely. Absolutely right. And so when she starts talking about the mandatory reporting of firearm sales, mandatory reporting of lost or stolen firearms, things of that nature, she really doesn't get into the constitutionality. She just kind of, blithely assumes that, they're constitutional.
Well, and she also blithely assumes that somehow criminals are going to obey these laws and somehow police are going to be able to use these new laws to make cases, et cetera, et cetera. And, maybe that's the case, maybe it isn't, but the fact of the matter is what she's asking for is registration. And what she is asking for is an abrogation of the concept that a law-abiding citizen is going to obey the law. By mandating that people report lost and stolen firearms, we've looked at these laws where they've been in effect other places, where they've been proposed other places, in fact, where they've been proposed here in Delaware.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what they're saying is we're going to treat this kind of property, this particular piece of property, this particular tool called a firearm, differently than we are any other form of personal property. It is not required that you report your automobile stolen. It is not required that you report your prescription stolen. It is not required that you report your jewelry stolen, your money stolen, or anything else stolen, including your lawnmower. Suddenly, we're going to create a whole new class of personal property that must be reported, and if you don't, you've committed a crime. And now therein lies the problem. It's a catch. It's a gotcha type of law where they're going to assume that after a certain period of time, after they have the firearm in their possession, that somehow you knew that it was stolen, you knew that it was lost. I will guarantee you that unless I take an inventory of my gun safe, I don't know whether that gun's in that gun safe or not. I'm assuming it stayed locked.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that no one took it out. I am assuming, based upon the fact that my wife and I are the only ones with the combinations, it's still there.
Yeah.
So, having said all that, now I'm using a safe. There are others that use other mechanisms to keep their firearms safe and out of the hands of people that shouldn't have them. They're assuming a lot of things that, quite frankly, are repugnant and insulting. They're assuming that I, as a law-abiding citizen, if I know my firearm is either lost or stolen, I'm not bright enough or responsible enough to report that fact to the police.
Well, that's exactly right. When she writes that mandatory reporting would provide law enforcement officers with investigative leads and indicators of trafficking and straw purchases. In addition, reporting laws protect legitimate gun owners by making it easier for police to locate a stolen firearm and return the gun to its rightful owner. I'd like to know, and maybe the good captain could provide this information for us. In Wilmington, Delaware, last year, of the firearms that were recovered in the hands of criminals that turned out to be stolen there in Wilmington, how many had not been reported stolen?
Interesting question. And of course, their answer is going to be, well, so-and-so's girlfriend who got locked up for this, and they're assuming that the straw purchasers are going to report these things stolen, or not as the case may be, and therefore they're going to make the case against straw purchasers, which, by the way, I applaud that concept. However, what I don't applaud is the assumption that because something strange happened in my household of which I wasn't aware, perhaps I was on vacation, perhaps not even home, when this time frame that they're going to write into these laws at 10 days, 12 days, 1 week, 5 days, 10 hours, whatever it might be, that within 10 hours of when I knew or should have known that it was missing, was that 10 hours of returning home from a vacation in Arizona? I don't know what that means, Cam, and quite frankly, I doubt seriously that they do either. But they're going to charge somebody. You watch. These kinds of laws lead to making honest citizens criminals by default. And it's unfair. It's unconstitutional. It defies logic, except perhaps in the mind of a police officer who is frustrated because he or she can't make the case that they know ought to be made.
Yeah.
Been there, done that. I didn't serve for 30 years. I served for 20. I didn't work in the city of Wilmington. I did work in the city of Dover. And I can tell you there were times when I would have liked to have had this information. However, in my heart of hearts and in my experience, I can also tell you that information, even if I had it, probably would not have led to an arrest.
Well, and that's, you make a very good point, John, because we've seen in Pennsylvania, for instance, a number of municipalities, including Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, pass these local lost or stolen ordinances, despite the fact, I believe, that these local ordinances violate Pennsylvania's statewide firearm preemption law. But the communities that have passed these laws, don't think that. They pass these laws, they're on the books, and yet it's been almost 2 years since Philadelphia passed this lost or stolen law. They've not charged anybody. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, it's been over a year. They've not used this one single time. So, for these advocates of these lost or stolen gun laws to say, oh, they're desperately needed, it's a great law enforcement tool, it doesn't seem to be used in the places that have this law in the books. In California, they've had this law in the books in cities for decades. And again, no evidence that it's ever been used to actually do what they say it will do.
Well, and then my question to you is, if it's not been used to say what they say it'll do, has it been used to wrongly accuse law-abiding citizens who, quite frankly, did nothing wrong but still didn't know that their firearm had been taken from the home?
And honestly, John, I don't know of a single case in which that has happened either. Frankly, I think what happens is they put the laws on the books. It's the soundbite solution. We're getting tough on crime. If the opportunity always exists for a law-abiding gun owner to get charged.
Well, my suggestion is, and I know that she's trying to come up with a solution to deal with a very serious problem that they have in the city of Wilmington. They have a gang drug war going on up there, and no one will say that they have a gang drug war going on up there. As soon as they get their heads out of the sand and admit that they've got a gang war going on over drug turf, some of which is interstate between New York and Delaware, Pennsylvania and Delaware, specifically Philadelphia and Chester, until they recognize what the real problem is, they've got a drug war going on between rival gangs. Until they get to that point, they're not going to solve their problems, and infringing upon the rights of law-abiding citizens and making it that much harder and having a chilling effect on the right to keep and bear arms. A chilling effect is infringement. by definition, and it is unconstitutional. Now, especially this thing about going back to her other proposal, which is the reporting of private transactions. In other words, they're going to ban sales between private individuals. They're going to register firearms. That's what this is all about. This is about registration.
Yeah.
Now, whether that's constitutional or not, we'll wait for the court to say. But I can tell you right now, you and I both know there are only two reasons to register. One is to confiscate, and the other is to tax.
Absolutely.
And I don't think any of us want either one of those things to happen.
Yeah, I think I think you're right, John.
So, having said all that, my hat is off to Captain Dietz. She wrote a wonderful column. Unfortunately, one, she doesn't know the law. Two, she doesn't know history. And three, I suspect that she hasn't properly identified the law enforcement challenge that currently exists in the city of Wilmington.
John Sigler, NRA past president, retired police officer from Dover, Delaware, police captain from Dover, Delaware. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on the program tonight, and look forward to doing it again very soon.
I look forward to it, and have a good weekend.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.